Today's lesson's over learning target 1, which states that I can use exponent properties to simplify expressions. Now, learning target 1 for this unit, we're going to break up into 5 separate videos because we're going to talk about the 5 rules all separately and then kind of combine them as we go. So a little vocabulary here. So an expression, and we've talked about this word before, is a mathematical statement made up of the multiplication of variables and numbers. Now there can be division there as well, but we'll get to that a little later. Okay. Now also remember, this is without an equal sign. That would be an equation if we had that. The next thing is a little bit newer, is an exponent slash base. Now the base is the big number on the bottom, like big number in the sense of size, like font size, not like actual value size. So the base represents a number or variable. The little number up top is representing the exponent, and that actually states the number of the bases, or the base, that we have multiplied together. Okay, so it's actually a way of counting the number of bases we have based on the multiplication that's being done there. Okay, so here to kind of compare, if we would add like bases, because of the like terms, we're adding the numbers in front, so it's 5c for those 5 c's that are being added. If we do the same thing for multiplication, we're actually looking at their exponents and adding them up. We're just writing the value of 5 up as an exponent. So it's the same kind of idea for both, but because of the different operation that we're using to deal with those bases, we actually write them differently. Okay, so for rule number 1, let's do some work and then we'll kind of define it. So if I have 4 squared times 4 cubed, you could write them all out and then kind of count them. So it looks like I have 5 4s, so I would write 4 to the 5th as my answer. Now, because I know the base of 4, I can actually plug that into the calculator and get 1,024. Now, instead of doing that, you could also just actually add the exponents based on what you have. So because I have a 7 to 4, I would just add them. So x to the 7 plus 4 actually gives me x to the 11th. And that's all the further I can go because x, I don't really know what that is because that's a variable. So if you have different bases, you want to group the bases together. So like I put my y's together and add those. For the x's there, notice that the x on the last one does not have an exponent given to it, but it is assumed that it's 1. So anytime it's not written, because it's still there, it would be an exponent of 1. So I just add those exponents. So 6 plus 2 gets me a value of 8. 4 plus 1 gets me 5. And you can write them in different forms. So you can write y to the 8th times x to the 5th, or x to the 5th times y to the 8th. Just know that usually we will write these in algebra or alphabetical order, just because that's kind of like proper math ways of actually writing your stuff. Okay, so here now if you have numbers or coefficients on the front of your variables, we would multiply them separately like we would normally do. So 5 times -2 is just -10, like it always has been, always will be. Then I've grouped my r's together, and that gets me r to the 3rd plus 8, which actually gets me r to the 11th. Now for some examples of kind of combining these a little bit differently. So if I have 2 to the 5th times 2 to the 3rd, because they're like bases, I add those exponents, so it gets me 2 to the 8th. And then in a calculator, that'll get me 256 because I know the base of 2, and so I can actually plug that in and figure it out. Okay, for number 2, I see that I have 2 like bases of b, but notice that c doesn't have anything, which is fine. So I group the b's together. Remember, b, when it's not written there, the exponent's 1. So then 9 plus 1 gets me b to the 10th. And because c didn't have anything, it just stays c to the 4th. And it's just already simplified in that case. For number 3 here, notice that we have a -10 and a -3 together. So I can group them together, and then I can group my y's together. And now because I know what -10 times -3 is, I'm going to write 30. And then like bases, I add those exponents. So 3 plus 2 gets me 5. Okay, and then that would be my answer. Okay, for number 4, it looks like I have 3 coefficients that I can group together, and then 2 like bases of x that I can put together. Notice that the x at the end has an exponent of 1 that I wrote in. Remember, anytime that it's not there, it'd be wise to put it in there. Okay, continue simplifying. So once I get to the end, I'll get negative 15x to the 8th. Okay, see you next time.